Picture this. I'm standing at the edge of a mirrored abyss, my own reflection staring back at me, fractured into 1,000 slivers of myself. I'm Vivian, 39 years old, a woman who spent most of her life piecing together a quiet, steady existence, now thrown into the heart of a city that hums with a restless energy I can't quite grasp. My husband, Caleb, and I have just arrived in this sprawling urban jungle for a 2-day business conference. He's the reason we're here, a man in his early 40s, driven by ambition, with a mind as sharp as a blade and a charisma that draws people in like moths to a flame. But there's a warmth to him too, a steadiness that's been my anchor for years. He's a guest speaker at this conference, a role he wears with effortless confidence, while I'm just along for the ride. No agenda, no purpose, just a passenger in his world for a couple of days. We're staying in a hotel that feels like it was designed to unsettle as much as it impresses. It's a sleek, modern high-rise, all glass and steel, with walls of mirrored panels that twist reality into something disorienting. Every step I take, I catch glimpses of myself from angles I didn't expect, like I'm being watched by versions of me I don't recognize. The corridors are dimly lit, the kind of lighting that stretches shadows into long, creeping shapes across the polished floors. There's a cold, impersonal luxury to this place: marble counters, minimalist decor, the faint hum of elevators in the distance. It's exciting in a way, like stepping into a world I don't belong to, but it's isolating too. I feel like a speck in this towering machine of a building, surrounded by people who move with purpose while I'm just drifting. This morning, Caleb was up early, already in his element, preparing for his first meeting with his business partners. Before he left our room, he turned to me with that playful smile of his, the one that still makes my heart skip after all these years. "Go feel the city's pulse, Viv," he said, his voice warm but teasing. "Don't just sit around waiting for me." I laughed, but as the door clicked shut behind him, a strange restlessness settled over me. What am I supposed to do in a place like this? A city so big, so alive, it feels like it could swallow me whole if I'm not careful. I've got no meetings to attend, no schedule to follow. Just me, a handful of hours, and a skyline that looms outside our window like a challenge I'm not sure I'm ready to accept. I paced our room for a while, the silence pressing in, broken only by the distant sounds of the city filtering through the glass. My mind kept wandering, snagging on little details, like the way Caleb's cologne still lingered in the air, or the brief encounter I had yesterday with one of Caleb's colleagues in the lobby, a man whose name I couldn't quite place, but whose sharp gaze stuck with me. Eventually, I decided I couldn't just stay holed up in the room all day. I needed to move, to do something, even if it was just a walk through the hotel to clear my head. So, I grabbed my keycard, slipped on my jacket, and headed for the elevator at the end of the hall. As I step inside, the doors slide shut with a soft hiss, sealing me into this small, mirrored box. The walls are all glass, polished to a flawless shine, reflecting me from every angle. It's like I'm surrounded by a dozen versions of myself, each one staring back with the same uncertain expression. My dark hair falls in loose waves over my shoulders, and my eyes look wider than usual, catching the fluorescent light in a way that makes me seem almost startled. I shift my weight, and the reflections mimic me, amplifying every small movement. It's unnerving, like I'm on display, even though I'm alone. Overhead, a faint hum of generic instrumental music drifts from hidden speakers, the kind of melody that's meant to soothe, but instead feels oddly hollow in this confined space. I press the button for the lobby, and the elevator gives a slight jolt before it starts its descent, a low vibration rumbling under my feet. I'm lost in thought, staring at the distorted version of myself in the mirrored wall when the elevator slows to a stop. The digital display above the doors reads 14, and I straighten up, expecting a stranger to step in. The doors part, and there he is, Trent. I recognize him instantly from yesterday's brief introduction in the lobby. He's one of Caleb's business associates, though I don't know much beyond that. His polished black shoes click against the floor as he steps inside, a faint smirk curling at the corner of his mouth when his eyes meet mine. He's dressed impeccably, a tailored navy suit hugging his frame, the crisp white shirt beneath it unbuttoned just enough to hint at a casual confidence. His jawline is sharp, almost too perfect, and his piercing blue eyes seem to cut right through me, like he's already figured out something I haven't. I feel a flicker of discomfort under that gaze, a sudden awareness of how small this elevator is, but I push it aside, offering a polite smile. "Hey, Vivian, right?" he says, his voice smooth, almost too smooth as the doors close behind him. I nod, confirming, and he leans casually against the mirrored wall, his reflection multiplying just like mine. "Didn't expect to run into you here. Heading down to explore the city?" "Yeah, something like that," I reply, keeping my tone light. Caleb's tied up with meetings, so I figured I'd get some air. "What about you? Conference stuff?" He chuckles, a low sound that seems to linger in the air. "Always. But I've got a few minutes to spare," Trent finishes, his voice trailing off in a way that feels deliberate, like he's leaving space for something unspoken. The elevator hums as it continues its descent, but the air inside this glass box feels heavier now, thicker with something I can't quite name. I shift uncomfortably, trying to focus on the glowing numbers ticking down above the doors, but I can feel his eyes on me, steady and unyielding, reflected in every mirrored panel around us. It's like there's nowhere to hide, not from him, not from myself. He straightens up slightly, taking a step closer, and I catch the faint scent of his cologne, something sharp and expensive, cutting through the sterile air. His voice drops, low and deliberate, as he leans in just enough to make my breath catch. "But does Caleb let you truly shine, Vivian?" The words hit me like a punch, unexpected and sharp, slicing through the polite distance I'd been trying to maintain. I freeze, my mind scrambling for a response, but nothing comes. My reflection in the mirrored walls shows wide eyes, lips parted in shock, and I can't look away from the intensity in his gaze as it locks onto mine through the endless reflections. It's like he's seeing right through me, peeling back layers I didn't even know I had. Heat rushes to my cheeks, burning under my skin, and my pulse hammers in my ears, loud enough that I'm sure he can hear it. I'm suddenly hyper-aware of how small this space is, how isolated we are in this suspended glass cage, cut off from the rest of the world. The hum of the elevator feels like a heartbeat now, steady and relentless, amplifying the tension that's building with every second. I open my mouth to say something, anything, but before I can, his fingers brush against my arm. It's a fleeting touch, barely there, but it's deliberate, and it sends a jolt through me, electric and unwelcome. My instinct is to pull back, and I do, stepping away until my back presses against the cool mirrored wall. But the space is so tight there's nowhere to go. "Trent, I start, my voice shaky, but then his hand moves again, this time grazing the side of my neck, light as a whisper but heavy with intent. I'm caught in this strange, dizzying space between shock and something else, something forbidden that I don't want to name. My breath hitches, and I hate myself for the way my body reacts, for the thrill that flickers through me even as guilt claws at my chest. I should stop this. I know I should, but I'm paralyzed, trapped by the weight of his presence and the endless reflections that seem to multiply every move, every breath. Then, without warning, the elevator lurches to a sudden stop. The lights flicker, casting eerie shadows across the mirrored walls, and a low, mechanical groan echoes around us, like the building itself is protesting. My heart leaps into my throat, and I grip the handrail, steadying myself as the sudden halt throws me off balance. Trent doesn't flinch. Instead, he steps forward, his expression unreadable in the dim, stuttering light, and reaches over to press the emergency stop button. The elevator grinds to a complete standstill, the silence that follows almost suffocating. I stare at him, my mind racing with confusion, guilt, and a growing panic. What is he doing? Why would he stop it? But I can't look away from him, can't break the hold of those piercing blue eyes that seem to see everything I'm trying to hide. "Vivian," he says, his voice softer now but no less intense. "Sometimes you've got to seize the moment. No one else will do it for you." His words hang in the air, heavy with implication, and I feel the weight of them pressing down on me, crushing the last of my resolve. I'm trembling, caught in this surreal, suspended space where the world outside doesn't exist, where it's just us and the endless reflections of our every move. My mind screams at me to think of Caleb, to remember the life we've built, the trust we share. But the tension in that elevator was a storm I couldn't escape. A whirlwind of wrong choices and unspoken desires that left me shaken to my core. My hands were still trembling as the elevator finally shuddered back to life, the light steadying, the hum returning like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Something I couldn't take back, no matter how much I wanted to. I could still feel the ghost of Trent's touch on my skin, the weight of his words echoing in my mind as the doors prepared to open. I tried to steady my breathing, to push down the guilt that was already clawing its way up my throat, but it was no use. My reflection in those mirrored walls looked like a stranger's, pale, wide-eyed, haunted by a secret I hadn't even fully admitted to myself. The elevator dinged softly, a sound so mundane it felt almost mocking, and the doors slid open on the lobby floor. The sudden brightness of the space hit me like a slap, the harsh fluorescent lights stripping away any chance of hiding. And there, standing just beyond the threshold, was Caleb. My heart stopped. His familiar figure was framed in that unforgiving glow, his broad shoulders squared, his posture as steady as ever. But it was his face that undid me, calm, unreadable, yet with a sharpness in his dark eyes I'd never seen before, not in all our years together. My stomach dropped, a sickening lurch that felt like falling, and guilt crashed over me like a tidal wave, pulling me under. I wanted to look away, to run, to disappear into the polished marble floor, but I couldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, caught in the weight of his gaze. Trent stepped out first, as if the air wasn't thick with tension, as if the world hadn't just shifted under my feet. He adjusted his tie with a casual flick of his wrist, his expression smooth and unbothered, like nothing had happened in that elevator. Like he hadn't just turned my life upside down with a few whispered words and a touch I couldn't shake. I tried to follow, to act normal, but my legs felt like lead. My hands moved on their own, smoothing my hair, tugging at the hem of my jacket. Anything to avoid meeting Caleb's eyes. But I could feel them on me, burning into my skin, seeing right through the flimsy mask I was trying to wear. The silence between us was suffocating, heavier than the hum of the lobby around us. Caleb's jaw was tight, a muscle twitching just beneath the surface, and his hands were buried in his pockets, a gesture that might have seemed casual if I didn't know him so well. I knew that stillness. It wasn't calm, it was control. He looked from Trent to me, his gaze lingering, dissecting, and I felt my chest tighten with every passing second. I wanted to speak, to explain, to fill the void with something, anything, but my throat was dry, my words trapped behind a wall of shame. Then finally, he broke the silence. His voice was steady, too steady, laced with something I couldn't quite place. Disappointment, maybe, or something darker, Now I know who pressed stop, he said, each word deliberate, cutting through the air like a blade. I froze. My breath caught in my chest, and my mind spun into overdrive. Did he know? Had he seen something? Heard something? Or was he just guessing, piecing together the puzzle of why the elevator had stalled on its way down? I searched his face for answers, for any hint of what he was thinking, but his expression had shifted into something colder, more calculated, like he was already 3 steps ahead of me. My pulse raced, hammering so loud I was sure he could hear it, and I felt the weight of every choice I'd made in that elevator pressing down on me, crushing me under the reality of what I'd done. I waited for the anger I expected, for the raised voice or the sharp words, for the scene I deserved. But it didn't come. Instead, there was just that icy silence, that unyielding stare that made me feel smaller than I ever had before. Around I'm standing there in the lobby, the hum of the crowd around me fading into a distant murmur, like the world has shrunk down to just the 2 of us. Caleb's eyes are locked on mine, piercing through every layer of defense I've tried to build in the last few minutes. I can still feel the weight of his earlier words. Now I know who pressed stop. Hanging between us, sharp and heavy, like a blade suspended mid-air. My heart is pounding so hard it feels like it might crack my ribs. And I'm waiting for the explosion, for the anger I'm sure is coming. But instead, he steps closer, his movement slow and deliberate, and I can't look away. I don't dare to. Then he speaks, his voice low, almost a whisper, but it carries a force that hits me harder than any shout ever could. Next time, it's my turn. You're in the elevator, and I'm there, watching you. His words slam into me like a physical blow, not out of rage, but with this resolute, almost possessive intensity that I can't unravel. It's not just what he says, but how he says it. Calm, controlled, like he's already decided something I'm not privy to. My stomach twists, a knot of fear and confusion tightening inside me. What does he mean by that? Is he saying he'll confront me, trap me in that same mirrored cage to face whatever this is head on? Is it a test, some kind of challenge to see if I'll crumble under the pressure? Or is there something darker behind it, something I can't even begin to guess at? My mind races through every possibility, each one more unsettling than the last, but I can't pin it down. All I know is that his tone, that steady, unyielding cadence, sends a shiver down my spine that I can't shake off. I search his face for clues, for anything to help me understand, but it's a mask of control. His jaw is set, his lips pressed into a thin line, but his eyes, they burn with something I can't name. Is it hurt? Betrayal? Or maybe a challenge, daring me to step into whatever game he's playing now? I've known Caleb for years, seen him in every kind of mood, but this is new. This is a side of him I've never touched, a depth I didn't know existed, and it terrifies me as much as it draws me in. There's a strange, dark fascination bubbling up inside me, mixing with the dread, and I hate myself for it. Why am I not just scared? Why is there a part of me, buried deep, that feels almost intrigued by the danger in his words? By the unknown of what next time could mean? My hands are trembling at my sides, and I clench them into fists, trying to hide the shake, but I know he sees it. He sees everything. My breath is shallow, barely reaching my lungs, and I feel like I'm suffocating under the weight of his gaze, under the weight of what I've done. Guilt is a living thing inside me now, clawing at my chest, tearing through every excuse I've tried to make for myself. What happened in that elevator with Trent wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal, and I can't pretend otherwise, not with Caleb standing here, looking at me like he can see every secret I've tried to bury. I want to apologize, to spill everything and beg for forgiveness, but the words won't come. They're stuck, tangled up with the shame that's choking me. And worse, there's this twisted part of me, this tiny, reckless voice in the back of my mind that wonders what it would be like to be in that elevator with Caleb watching me, to face whatever intensity he's promising. I'm horrified by the thought, by the way it flickers through me like a spark, threatening to ignite something I can't control. I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirrored walls of the lobby, and I barely recognize the woman staring back. My face is pale, almost ghostly, under the harsh fluorescent lights, my eyes wide and haunted. Later that evening, I find myself walking back through the hotel's endless corridors, the mirrored walls stretching out around me like a labyrinth of my own making. Every step echoes softly on the polished floor, and my reflection follows me, fragmented and distorted, a constant reminder of the mess I've created. It's as if these glass panels are mocking me, reflecting not just my face but every wrong turn, every fleeting moment of weakness that led me to this point. The dim lighting casts long shadows, making the hallway feel tighter, more oppressive, like it's closing in with every breath I take. I can't shake the feeling that I'm lost in more ways than one. Lost in this hotel, lost in my thoughts, lost in the tangle of guilt and desire that's been knotting itself tighter inside me since that moment in the elevator. I reach our room and fumble with the key card, my hands still unsteady from the weight of the day. The door clicks open, and I step inside, the silence of the space hitting me like a wall. The room is untouched, just as we left it this morning, with Caleb's suitcase neatly tucked in the corner and the faint scent of his cologne still lingering in the air. It's a cruel kind of familiarity, a reminder of the life we've built, the trust I've shattered. I close the door behind me and move to the edge of the bed, sinking down onto it with a heaviness that feels bone deep. My eyes catch my reflection in the large mirror across the room, mounted above the sleek dresser. I stare at myself, searching for something. Answers, maybe, or absolution. But all I see is a woman who looks like she's carrying a secret too big to hold. My mind replays every second of what happened earlier, looping through the memory like a broken record I can't turn off. The way Trent's voice dropped low, the heat of his touch against my skin, the way my body betrayed me with a thrill I didn't want to feel. And then Caleb, standing there in the lobby, his words slicing through me with a precision that left me reeling. Next time, it's my turn. You're in the elevator, and I'm there, watching you. I can still hear the weight of that promise, the way it hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. What did he mean? Was it a threat, a warning, or something else entirely? Something I'm not sure I'm brave enough to face? I sit there, hands clasped tightly in my lap, trying to unravel the knot of emotions twisting inside me. But it's no use. The more I think, the more tangled it gets. Here's the thing I can't admit out loud, not even to myself in the quiet of this room. I don't fully regret it. I should. I know I should. What I did was wrong, a betrayal of everything Caleb and I have built over the years. But there was a part of me, a reckless, hidden part, that craved the rush of it all, the danger, the forbidden edge of that moment in the elevator. It was like stepping off a cliff and feeling the wind whip around me, knowing I might not survive the fall, but loving the adrenaline anyway. And Caleb's reaction, that cryptic intensity in his voice, only added fuel to the fire. His words weren't just a reprimand, they felt like an invitation, a challenge wrapped in shadow. The idea of him watching, of being caught in that mirrored cage under his gaze, sends a shiver through me that I can't ignore, no matter how much I try to push it down. I love Caleb. I do. That hasn't changed, not even after today. He's been my rock, my safe harbor in a world that often feels too big, too chaotic. I can still picture the way he laughs, the way his hand feels in mine, steady and sure. But now there's this fracture between us, a crack I've carved with my own hands, and I don't know if it can be mended, or if I even want it to be. His reaction in the lobby wasn't what I expected. I braced myself for anger, for hurt, for the kind of fight that leaves both parties wounded. But instead, he simply looked at me with a quiet understanding that made me realize perhaps the fracture was not as deep as I feared. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.